Hey everyone, and welcome to Mongrels Garage, where our main focus is on low dollar builds and junkyard swaps. But we'll work on whatever we can get our hands on just so we can get some experience. And today, that happens to be a 1969 Mustang Mach 1. Yeah, that's right, we're going to go help Chris out. He's having a little trouble getting it started, so we're going to see if we can fix that for him. We'll go through some diagnostic tips, compression tests, cylinder leak down check, well, at least a homemade one, timing, stuff like that. I'll put a link down below on some of those tools that we can use to do that. I haven't used them all, but at least you'll know where to get them. And if you haven't already subscribed, do us a big favor, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, big red button up here or down there, and let's get started. Here we have the 67 Mustang. Done a few modifications to it, which we'll walk you through a little bit later, but we've converted to a 5-speed manual transmission, fuel injection, rack and pinion, and coilover suspension. And above that, we have the restoration modification project of the 69 Mach 1. And that's the one we're going to be working on. It used to run fairly decently, but it's been having a little problem starting lately. We're going to get into it, see what we can figure out. Suspect it might be a cam issue, but we'll do a compression check and check things out. There we go. Mach's coming down. We're going to start working on it. Walk you through the 67 a little bit. We'll get back to that a little bit later. And we're going to go through the 69 Mach 1 right now. Like I said, got a couple issues. I'll tell you, it's nice to have that lift. I wouldn't mind having one of those. Have to save up my pennies. Okay, there's the beast. And we're going to pull the plugs, start with compression test. Obviously, this one is not as far along as the 67. So, as you can see, I've got the proper attire on for working on the Fords. This is my gift to you on your birthday, sir. Now, we're going to start by pulling the plugs out, because that's what we got to do. And these plug wires, that one's not too bad, but that one's seen better days, so we're going to be fixing those issues as well. Alright, a couple tips. When you're doing a compression test, you're going to want to put a battery charger on the car. There we go, we got our battery charger there. I'm going to let Chris hook the battery charger up. Now, he hasn't had the best of luck with some of this in the past, so Chris, as a reminder everyone, the red goes on the plus side. You hook that one up first, and then you put the black on the negative side. So why don't you go ahead and hook up the battery charger, buddy?
And just so you know, the other car, I accidentally put the battery the other way. I took it out and then I flipped it around and I didn't realize it. And yeah, it made a lot of sparks. And I think I created a temporary welder. And it was pretty spectacular. All right, so red first.
Yes, let's avoid the spectacular welding this time around. Yeah, you bet. That looks like the plus sign.
Good, good.
Oh, very good. Supervision works great. All right, here we go.
All right.
It's about as much fun as wrestling a duck from an alligator, but I think I've contorted myself appropriately to get it. Now, it's between the header and the brake booster and the brake winds, and yeah, this back one's a little bit of a bear, but I think we got her. Let's just see. Ah, yes. Victory. Let me go. So we're going to crank it over, make sure we blow out anything that might be in the cylinders. Maybe there's some fuel in there that's causing the hard start issue. So we're going to go ahead and crank it over. Go ahead, Chris. That's good. So the important thing is, when doing a compression test, you want to pull all the plugs out at one time. Normally, I would label all the spark plug wires, but I'm going to replace them, check the timing, everything else, so I'm not going to bother this time around. Here we have our handy dandy compression gauge, which I have not fully put into the cylinder yet. And just a screw in type. So you just give it a twist and it goes. You can see it down there going into the cylinder. And we're going to start recording our compression on each cylinder. And what we're looking for is that they're all relatively balanced, within 15% of each other. I'm going to set up for that. We'll get Chris to crank it a few times, and then we'll come back and see what the results are. So we've got it all set up for the compression test. Got all the plugs removed. We get the throttle propped open so we don't have restriction airflow. And then we're going to go ahead and crank it. Chris, go ahead and give me some cranks. I'll let you know when to stop. Stop. Okay, there we go. You want to crank it till the needle stops bouncing, essentially, and that's our reading right there. It's a little low. Here you have the numbers from the compression tests. As you can see, they're actually pretty consistent. Consistently low, but workable. This could be for a few reasons. Number one, the engine's been sitting for a while, hasn't been cranked, hasn't been started, so it's cold. Also, the lifters might be bled down a bit. And the third reason is that it's got smogger heads on it. They're from the 70s, although I would expect to see a slightly higher compression. So let's take a look at how the numbers correspond to the engine. On the Fords, we start with number 1 cylinder on the passenger side front. You can usually, as a general rule of thumb, whichever cylinder head, let me see if I can get this on the film, sits farther ahead, that's the one that has the number 1 cylinder. You can see on the passenger side, the head sits a little farther ahead than on the driver's side. So number 1, and Fords go 1, 2, 3, 4. And on the other side, we start at the front, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that corresponds to our list that we've got with the compression numbers. Okay, so we've done our compression test, but that only gives us part of the picture. Now what we want to do is the cylinder leak down check. I don't actually have the gauges for that, but we can kind of simulate it a little bit. And what I've done is I've taken my compression testing tool apart and I've put an air fitting in it. We're going to thread that into the cylinder. Just down over here. Okay, you can see that we've got our fitting in the cylinder. It's critical that you have the cylinder exactly at top dead center when you do this, and don't use a lot of air pressure at first. Come down here, we can take a look at our timing mark. Let's see, we're at 0, so we should be pretty close. We're going to add air to it, and you don't want it to rotate, you want it to stay where it is. And if you have a problem, you'll hear it coming out of one of a few places. Okay, here you can see we've got the air line attached. You can hear a little air hissing out because we've got a lot of pressure coming back on us. We've got it cranked right down, and that's the only place we've got the air coming out right now. If we had a problem, you'd either hear it coming, if we had a valve problem on the intake side, you hear air coming out of the carburetor. I'll demonstrate that later. If we had problem with the rings, you would get it through the dipstick tube or through your PCV valve back here. And if you had a problem with the exhaust valve, you'd hear it out the exhaust, which I'll demonstrate that. All right, we're going to demonstrate what it sounds like when it's coming out of the intake. Go ahead, Chris, rotate the engine through a bit so we can get the intake valve to open. Okay, you can hear it coming out. If you get enough pressure, you can hold a piece of paper over there. Turn the pressure up. And you can see it blowing that paper around. Alright, we've had a look at the timing now. We're moving on compression testing, going to the timing. Here's the rotor. We've pulled the cap off. Got it right here. Looks like it's in pretty good shape still, so we're not too concerned about that. This will rotate counterclockwise as the engine turns over. We've set the number 1 cylinder to top dead center, meaning the piston's at the top of the cylinder. And down here, you can see that our timing mark is lined up at the 0 mark. Alright, I've managed to get all the old wires off and hold them in front of my face. Very good. So I'm going to put these away for safekeeping. There we go. And we got the new wires here. And we're going to start wiring them up, moving to the appropriate cylinder, working from the longest to the shortest. I've only got 1 wire, so I'm not really comparing it very well. This would be a short wire, but it's the coil wire. Alright, now normally I would range these from longest to shortest. You can see that there's some variance in length. But look at this. We got these suckers are numbered, so we know exactly where they go. 1, 2, 3. This makes it a whole lot easier. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning, working on the spark plug wiring looms. I decided to get a little bit of an early start. I suspect Chris will be up sharply and promptly at about the crack of noon. So I'm going to flip the camera around and show you what I've done. You can see we've got the wiring run from the new wires on this distributor here. I've created a couple looms of tie wraps. It's pretty easy to do. I'll walk you through how I've done that. Alright, you want to take your tie wrap and wrap it around all 4 wires. Try to keep the tail end down. And for the next one, you're going to put it between 2 wires and all the way around the other tie wrap, just like that. And then you tighten it down, and you got a couple loops like that, and you end up with an end result like this. Now that you have your nice neat tie wraps and your wires wrapped, you got all these unsightly tails kicking around, and we want to get rid of them. Most people will just take their side cutters and cut them off. Unfortunately, this leaves a bit of a sharp edge, and it looks like you just tried to pet a Wolverine when you're working there in the future. What I like to do is I like to get the old trusty straight razor and give it a trim. You gotta kind of hold on to the tail, but you'll find that it leaves a nice smooth cut. Okay, here we go. We've got all the tails trimmed, and as you can see, I can rub the old plastic glove over it, and it didn't even tear, which normally tears when you look at it wrong. Okay, I'm just checking the gap on the spark plugs. It should be about 3/4 thou. You gotta be careful with these with the platinum electrode. They're very delicate, so you don't want to be using feeler gauges sliding them in and out. If I take my little wire, I can see that it slides in, but there's not a lot of drag. So adjusting electrode, that's what this end's for. I'll just give it a little tweak, a little more. There we go, we got just a bit of drag on there, so just be very careful with these platinum ones. Alright, well, we've set base timing, we've routed all the new wires, put new plugs in it, make sure all the gaps are good. Spark plug gap on those platinum should be set from the factory, but out of the 8, only 1 was at 3/4 thou, so the rest I had to adjust in there, so it's always good to check them. Alright, Chris, let's see if she'll crank. See how much fire we generate. Stop! Alright, so we've replaced all the plugs and all the wires and set the base timing. Still couldn't get it to run. Now I've gone and replaced the coil. That's our next most likely suspect. So we'll give this a shot with the new coil, see if it fires up. As you can see, I've made quite the mess with the gas, and we'll give it a shot. Go ahead, Chris. Let me stand back, way back. Oh, almost. Okay. Our timing's a little out. Okay, hold on. Just tweak the timing a little bit. Alright, there we go. I think we'll have to adjust the timing a little bit. Shut it off. See if it'll start back up. Okay. So, end result, let's see what we've got. Go ahead, Chris. Crank it up. That's running quite a bit better. Still got a little tweaking to do. Okay, so there you have it. We did get it running. However, there still seems to be an issue. I think it's a cam problem. Why don't you go ahead, leave some comments down below, let us know what you think it is and how we might be able to resolve it. I'm leaning towards taking the valve cover off and checking the rocker travel. But whatever it is, it'll be on the next video. Until then, go ahead, hit the like, ring the bell so you know when the next video is out, and have a great day. See you later.